Guys, welcome back. Now I'm ready to announce our fireside chat about the future of the DAO. And here with us, Timothy Lewis, founder of DevDAO and founder of Ikigai Asset Management X, and the moderator, Wolf Karl, professor and author of book Decentralization, Technology's Impact on Organizational and Social Structure. Guys, the stage is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, hey, thank you, Sergey, for setting this up. Welcome, Timothy. You and I were talking every day about all kinds of things, but now we're doing it in this forum, which is great. So I have just found out that I'm moderating. So I have some particular questions that I will ask you, Timothy, and then you can feed it back to me. And I don't know if we have audience feedback. I don't think so. And we can take it from there. So does that work?
Sounds good, Wolf. Yeah, coming at you live here from Full Node in Berlin. Excited to be here. It is, though, pronounced Ikigai. So I wanted to make sure the audience knows Ikigai Asset Management, and it's the DevDAO, which is devxdao.com, which is the kind of accumulation of work that we've been putting forward, I've been putting forward, you've been putting forward on a nonprofit grant giving association in the form of a DAO that we've been working on for the last year and a half or so. So yeah, looking forward to explaining or answering some questions. Wolf, you've been so fantastic in all of this process and your history in academia in writing about this subject matter. And then, over the last year in operations and trying to get this thing up and running has been absolutely crucial. My partner in crime. So yeah, ask away.
Okay, so maybe we should talk a little bit about basics, definitions, how to delineate DAOs, what works, what doesn't work, first generation, second generation, third generation. Then my proposal would be that from there, we could potentially talk about the role of DAOs in decentralized commerce. And since we only have 20 minutes.
So we're going to talk about basics. We're going to talk about beehives and anthills, talking about decentralized order, maybe the Apache tribes. How far back are we going to go? We're going to go before we had triple entry accounting and ledgers, or just the post Bitcoin era.
I would assume that most people have a general familiarity with the concept. We should still define it and then talk a little bit about why we care, right? Why is it, what is it, and why do we care as people who've been in the decentralized ecosystem for a while, including in the last bull run where DAOs were really not a big topic, right? And that has changed radically. So why don't we start with how do you define a DAO and why is it important for the future of decentralized systems?
So decentralized autonomous organization, or if you've come from the BitShares, Dan Larimer world, decentralized autonomous company or corporation, basically a gathering of individuals that are going to agree upon organizing based on a series of smart contracts. Ideally trying to get rid of the bloat from the traditional corporate infrastructure or organizational infrastructure and the way that governance runs through centralized the current operations, trying to move that centralization into agreeable contracts, trusted contracts between spread individuals wherever they are in many different types of organizations. So most of the examples that we've had to date of this have generally been around some venture concept. The most well-known DAO, the DAO, really was a venture pool tool where everyone coupled finances together to make decisions on where to go invest as a group. But now that we have better understanding of smart contracts and how systems work and newer tools, the availability for different types of organizations is starting to emerge. And yes, the last bull run really was just about the illegal equity sales in the US and legal abroad. But as the tools have gotten better and more understood by the development community. We've now had the chance to experiment with different forms of governance between individuals. So, looking forward to continuing that effort and building upon, the work of those past and, trying to make newer, better systems.
Yeah, great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your role with the ETA and the DevX DAO, and so we get a feel for where you're coming from.
So ETA is the Emerging Technology Association. That's our kind of legal anchor into the real world. All DAOs that exist now, with the exception of those that have been done by open law and the allows that are generally exist in a gray area of jurisdictional compliance. Some will never cross over into the traditional realm of law where you have to enter into contracts that are legally binding, but some will choose to. So we went after a large grant. We have a sponsoring grant that has come from the Casper Labs network. Dear friends of mine who were building a new layer 1 protocol and have enabled us to build our vision of a DAO, a grant giving DAO, whereas the ETA is our legal and contractual arm for the developers DAO. So that's an organization that sits in Switzerland, is a registered nonprofit association, and then is able to enter us into contracts. But it has a very unique structure to where the actual voting from the members that are actually, that make up that association, the voting is always outweighed by the members of the DAO. So the DAO itself has more power, and as long as the DAO is voting for whatever the vote is on isn't something that is going to break contracts or break the law, then the will of the DAO wins in that voting structure. So really excited about the voting structure. You can read more about it. There's an excellent Medium post by Wolf Call, and we have some other documentation that's on our website, devxdao.com. But very much looking forward to expanding upon that model, and we have hopes and goals to where we can become an association of DAOs, to where all DAOs don't need to form their own legal construct, that we can come and form an association, separately but together, and have still a legal anchor, and make it easier for other DAOs also to take part in other parts of contracts and business that goes on outside of just these Web3 networks.
Great. So maybe speak to us a little bit from the heart, and I know you're good at that. Why are you doing this, Timothy? What is your motivation to get into this and get all these people riled up and into this?
Whenever I ask this question, I usually just say it's for the lulz, right? And some people will know what I'm talking about. But, it really was about being approached to work on other protocols, other projects over the last couple of years. After all of the bull and bear cycles that I've been through, it's frustrating to see there's a lot of people that want to work in the industry and don't know where to work. Might think that things have passed them by, but there's so much work to do. But I also hated seeing some of the projects and the way that they were approaching developers, and kind of targeting them to be kind of protocol specific, or roping them into just singular ecosystems, whereas we have the Web3 to build out as a massively large project, and educating people and bringing people on, I think needs to be done safely. In 2014, when I and many others I know invested into the Ethereum crowd sale, what I like to say is there were about 100 devs for every speculator. Very few speculators were around at the time, and many people were very technical, and the conversations were very technical. Fast forward, 3 or 4 years from that into the 2017, 2018 explosion, and there were 100 speculators for every dev involved in projects. And really the value of the dollar for the developer should be considered higher than the value of the dollar for the speculator, because the developers expected in the open source ecosystem to build out the tools to make the networks valuable. So what I wanted to do was create a resource where we had basically a steering committee, a DAO, that would be able to capture donations from emerging protocols and emerging projects to be able to steer funding towards open source in general, and trying to make sure that there would be value delivered to developers who were going to take their time and effort to learn new things across a vast ecosystem, to make sure that it wasn't just a venture push, that it was more so for the needs of the ecosystem as seen by fellow developers. So really excited that Casper, in their willingness to see and push forward a mentality of as decentralized as possible, recognize that we could put something like this together in building a transparent on-chain protocol to distribute grant value throughout their ecosystem and throughout all open source, giving us autonomy, allowing us to operate separately from the organization, and really giving us some real great freedom of how we're able to distribute this and who we're able to distribute this to. So it was very forward-looking by them. They've been very forward-looking in a lot of their development. I'm very excited for their launch, which is soon in March. And now that we have this together, looking forward to seeding and funding developers from across the entire open source pool, to feel welcome, to bring ideas that aren't just venture-based ideas, to build, to maintain projects, to create things that will be good for the entire ecosystem. So very excited about that, and looking forward to this summer of grants that we have upon us now. Looking forward to start distributing grants into the ecosystem.
Excellent. Let me talk about a comparison. Well, not comparison. It's an analogy, right? And you can reject the analogy if you think it's bad. But so Bitcoin people are talking about Bitcoin super cycle. There's a lot of institutional interest coming into the space. We have Michael Saylor pushing hard, Grayscale. There's a lot of high level impact in this space. And there's a lot of talk about it incrementally over time decentralizing finance completely, right? So that to move away from the top-down centralized finance structures that we've grown accustomed to in the last 150 years or so. That's a gradual iterative process. Now, let's look at this, and I think there's building consensus, some level of consensus in decentralized communities around this logic, right? But let's pivot away from that and try to apply this logic to this idea of DAOs and the role of DAOs in decentralized commerce. Now, I have some pretty strong feelings about this that I know you share, but maybe we can talk a little bit about what does the DAO structure mean for the future of decentralized systems and decentralized commerce, right? Within those systems, if you want to take a stab at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the will of those who are participating in any organization still has to be met. And instead of it being and coming from a top-down central ownership voice, creating the ability to have a voting mechanism and governance mechanism that allows all participants of the system to be able to move the organization forward is what the DAO structure is all about. So, trying to there's a great document that you kind of had shared in the asset heavy versus asset light style of organizations, and moving from these GE behemoths into the Google and then the Uber style of organizational ownership, where you still have the central individuals that have an ownership and maintain complete control over the work that's really done by radical amounts of people. Moving the next step to DAOs, where you have the voting mechanisms and the governance mechanisms that can handle that work, handle the top work, to where the distribution of value can be better placed. We now have this infrastructure system, the internet and the other the Web3 infrastructure as it starts getting built out, to be able to handle that value distribution, and seeing that be modeled, and seeing the different ways for the infrastructure to be able to take over some of the what were they, the Wizard of Oz style leadership methods. We're unmasking Oz here, and we're going to be able to create contracts and be able to create trust amongst the large networks of people that ultimately do create the systems that are used. So as we move forward and we upend the banking systems, we upend the insurance systems, and the different types of bloated products that exist in the current ecosystem, we'll be able to do that with these trusted contracts on transparent networks, and be able to do that with some sorts of governance that we will attach to. Ideally, many individuals will attach to many different types of DAO organizations and contribute with their own strengths and their skills, and will earn value from the networks that they help launch and build and create. You won't feel the weight of the corporate slavery that kind of exists, I think, in today's world. People will hopefully have the freedom to move their skills and talent throughout these different organizations, and it's going to take time, but I think over the next 20 years, we're going to see a radical revolution. I've seen some documents recently talking about in America, especially with some recent changes to the law and the way that we contractualize the Uber and the Lyft drivers, that many other industries are looking to push everyone into these contractor mentality relationships. And that is just wrong. That is just going to be a downfall of a lot of things that I think our ancestors had worked for in understanding how we have to build and create society that is beneficial and useful to many. So hopefully this becomes what the good economy, or the better economy, when we can create agreements, have agreements be automated, and then all attached to the systems.
And we start seeing the early remnants, or the early indicators, if you want, of where this could be going in GameStop, Dogecoin, and AMC, right? I know you have some pretty strong interests in this. So how people, in the future, how people may actually self-organize in DAOs to deal with top-down approaches that they're otherwise forced into, that don't serve their interests, right? So I don't know if you want to say a few words about that situation.
No, we're seeing the power of networks.
Right?
Yeah, we're seeing the power of networks, right? And like who creates momentum, and who creates how is value created, and watching the public markets kind of shudder at the retail investor that's now gaining strength because they have access, right? And a lot of the tools that we've been developing, I think, on these networks throughout the last 5 years or 6 years since really the launch of Ethereum, can emulate, can then usurp the value of these privatized, equity exchange networks. And we have to get some laws in place, and we have to, there's just going to be this radical change of how these things can operate, at least in the United States. Other jurisdictions are moving much quicker, but there's a better way than under a lock and key, under somebody's guise, to operate with trust. And that's what triple entry accounting ledgers provide. And so it's going to be very interesting to move forward. It's going to take a lot of work. That's why I'm excited to launch our grant program. If you're interested in grants, if you're a developer and you're interested in building the future of DAOs or building open source projects, we stand completely behind open source. Come visit us at devxdao.com or at our Telegram channel, devxdao. Very interested in getting to build a lot for the ecosystem, and doing so as part of a community, as part of a steering committee.
Excellent. Yeah. So with that, I think we have only a few seconds left in this fireside chat. Sergey, if you want to say a few words or wrap it up, take it away.
No, please. We're going to finalize your station. I think the last words from your both sides.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. Can't stop, won't stop. GameStop would probably be the thing I'd have to say. Let's see what happens. Markets are tricky. Don't try to time them all the time, but movements are certain. Like, this is a revolution of crypto assets, and the revolution of triple entry accounting ledgers, I think, is here to stay. This is a great industry to get involved in right now. It's still absolutely at its infancy. So there's a lot of work to do. There will be a lot of value created. Come join, come be a part of it. It is an exciting, fun place full of amazing people, very open and willing people internationally, and it's opened my eyes, in an amazing way. So thank you for having us on, Sergey. And Wolf, you want to say anything? Thanks for hosting today, brother.
Yeah, anytime. So so my last few cents is this: we have governance now at a level that I think we can move decentralized systems forward, and that is so incredibly exciting. I've looked for that for a decade, and we're now at a point where I actually feel comfortable moving forward with decentralized governance, and that I think that will set up a lot of solutions that we can't even now at this point understand where this can go, because it's growing so big so quickly. So with that, I'll wrap it up, and thank you, Sergey, for hosting us.
Thank you both guys. Thank you, Wolf. Thank you, Timothy, Lewis. My pleasure to have you today here, but we're going to be back very soon with tokenizing assets.
Yay.